So we have been learning all about God's book, the Bible, and how it's one big story about God's amazing plan. So the last couple of weeks we have heard about how God created the world and Adam and Eve, and about Noah and his family, and about how God saved them and how he made a promise to them to never flood the world ever again. And about how God always keeps his promise. So today, Trinity has a story, a true story from God's book, the Bible, about another amazing promise that God made.
Now, a long time ago, after Noah, there lived a man named Abraham and his wife, Sarah. Now, Abraham was 75 years old. Wow, that's really, really old. Now, one day, God said to Abraham, I want you to leave your home, because I have a new and wonderful place for you to go. So Abraham and Sarah, they all went to God's new wonderful place. Now, one night, God said to Abraham, I want you to go outside. So he did. And God said, look up at the sky. There are so many stars that you cannot count. And I am going to give you a family that is so big that you cannot count how many people there are. Wow. Can you count the stars? I don't think so. I don't think you could. There are way too many stars, even more than are on this chalkboard. Which means that God made an amazing promise to Abraham that only God can do. Now, a little while later, God spoke to Abraham again, and Abraham was 99 years old this time, even older than before. And he said, I am God and I am powerful and I am going to make you a promise. Wow, another promise from God. God promised that Abraham would be able to live in a wonderful land and have a huge family, as many as the stars. Now I'm going to move Abraham over here for a second, because God promised we'd have a huge family. Oh no! Someone fell away. Even more than all these little people here. Can you imagine? All these people in your big family. Now, when God spoke to Abraham, he said, through your family, I am going to bless the whole world. God's amazing plan was to rescue the world through Abraham's family. Now, do you know who that person could be? Let me think. It would be Jesus. Now, Abraham was a long time before Jesus, so he didn't know exactly what God's plan was, but he knew that God kept his promises and what he said was true. Now, God's plan was that he made his people and he loves his people. And he also promised that his plan would be to send Jesus to die for us, so that we can live forever with God. Now, isn't that an amazing promise? God made his people, and he loves his people so much that he sent Jesus to die for us so we can live forever and ever with God. Wow. Now, the next time you go outside at nighttime and see the stars, I want you to look up and see how many stars there are and how you cannot count them. And remember that God promised Abraham that he would have a big family, more than the stars that are uncountable. And I also want you to remember that you are part of God's big family.
Hi Explorers, I'm back and we have the craft for the story that we just heard that was all about Abraham. So we're going to make these cute little woolen stars And these help remind us that when we look at the stars, we can remember that God made a special promise to Abraham that he will be the start of God's big family. So for this craft, all we'll be needing is some wool, and you can use whatever coloured wool you would like. So I've got some blue and red. And you'll also be needing some skewers, or you can use sticks, you can use chopsticks, whatever you've got on hand is fine. And lastly, some scissors. So let's get started on our cute little stars. And you can hang these wherever you like. Maybe you can save it for your Christmas tree, you can put it on some door handles, whatever you would like. So we're going to start with our skewer. Now you want to cut these, you can cut these into whatever shape you like. I've just done half, so you want to cut it into a little, stick size, I guess. And we're just going to get some wool. I think I'm going to use blue. We're going to get a big piece of wool, very long. Give it a little snip. And we're just going to, you might need some help from your parent for this. We're just going to tie a little knot at the start of our wool. Little knot, just like that. And now this is the fun part. This is where we get to wrap the wool around the stick so that we have a nice pretty blue stick. Nice spins, just like that, all the way down to the bottom and then back up to the top again. Just like this. Now as we get closer to the top, all we have to do is tie it up to the bit we made at the start. So we're going to get this loose piece of string here and tie another knot. Now you might need some help from your parents when you're doing the knots because it can be a little bit tricky. That's okay. And there we go, we have a nice blue coloured stick, just like that. Now don't worry about these loose bits of string, we're going to fix those up at the end. So you want to do this to another two pieces of your skewer. I've already done mine just to save some time. So now we have 3 blue pieces of skewer, and now we can start work on our star. So this part can be a little bit tricky. All we really want to do is just arrange our pieces into a sort of star shape. I've got a little star shape here, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So now, and I'm going to use my red wool for this, we're going to get another big long piece of wool, going to give it a snip, just like that. And this part, you just sort of have to randomly arrange the wool around that centerpiece to try and tie all of the star bits together. So I'm going to lift that up a little bit. And all you want to do is just go around and around the center to tie our star shape together. Now the shape might sort of come undone a few times, that's okay, we'll fix it up at the end. But for now, we're just going to do lots of wrapping around, just like that. Beautiful. Now we're going to come around again. Just do lots of loops around your star shape so that it all sticks together at the end. And now when you've run out of wool, all we need to do is just tie them together again. So like we've done with the other pieces of string, we're just going to tie a little knot. Again, this part can be a little bit tricky, so you might need some help from your parent. And there we go, we have beautiful little star shape going on. Now, as I said before, we do have a lot of these loose pieces of string. All we have to do now is just cut those pieces off, and then our star will be nice and neat. All right, and here we have our star. That is quite cool, isn't it? Now there's one last step, so we want to have a little loop at the top so that we can hang our star onto things. So all we want to do is get another piece of string. I'm going to use red again for this one. This one has to be a little bit shorter because we don't want our loop to be too big, and just give that a nice little snip. Then we're going to tie a little loop, and you might need some help from your parents because the knots can be a little bit tricky, but we're going to tie just a little knot here. There we go, got our loop. So now we just need to tie this loop to our star. So I'm going to, you can pick any random point on your star. I'm just going to pick this one. And using these 2 little bits of string here, we're just going to tie that on to our skewer. And do 2 just to make sure it's all good. Beautiful. And here we have it. We've got a nice little star to remind us of God's promise to Abraham. And so wherever you hang this, every time you look at it, you can remember this promise that God made. So thanks, explorers. I hope you give this craft a try.